What's up, everybody? Kenny here, also known as Silent85. Welcome to another vlog. Gonna get a little political again, just like the recent one. I'm only making these because I really want to put my views out there. I look a little rough, apologies. But I don't really think this is something I've touched on, at least recently. I did a video a few years ago about it, but with the election coming around, we're starting to see abortion bans, women's rights in question, all kinds of stuff. And to be honest, this is total bullshit. Women have a right to their own body. They have a right to decide what happens with that body. Look, we as men, there's a lot of men that have made these draconian laws put into effect a lot of the time when women didn't even have rights to vote or to even have a say in familial affairs. You know, there were just women to be in the kitchen, to be in the house, to be breeding stock. It's ridiculous. I mean, society evolves over time, and we're going to see that eventually. We're going to see that, society's going to get smarter. Our country's going to get smarter about this stuff. Unfortunately, when Roe v. Wade was overturned to go to the state level, which I do and don't agree with in some ways, because there are some states that will go to the extreme, that will not allow abortions for rape or incest, or even if the mother's life is at stake because the baby's more important than the mother, apparently, which is just not fair. And unfortunately, it's going to bring back days of clothes hanger abortions and just unsafe conditions for mothers that feel like this is being forced on them. In fact, you'll even see suicide rates go up because of this, And any doctors or nurses or family members that want to try to help will either be sued or, punished by law. I just don't get it. I don't get how you take away a woman's rights to their own autonomy. It never made any fucking sense to me. I mean, you go back to certain religious foundations or beliefs or ideals, and this shit starts to creep in, I mean, yes, there is something to be said about a baby being in the womb after a certain amount of time to when, it starts to get a heartbeat or stuff like that, or before the nervous system starts to evolve beyond a point where they feel pain. But that's, only part of the story. I mean, you've got miscarriages that could be caught ahead of time. There could be complications with the mother. There could be, again, rape victims that they're going to be forced to carry their rapist baby. I mean, can you imagine that? Like your daughter being raped, your mother being raped, your sister being raped, a cousin that you're very close with being raped, your wife being raped, and they can't get rid of the baby because it's against the law. What kind of men put these policies into place? It's so deranged and medieval. It's ridiculous. The other bad part is a lot of the people that will vote for laws like this or put them in place won't even think about the baby past its birth, because there's not a lot of social nets in place for these people coming into the world or into our country. That's the other part of the sad reality that we live in. So you'll protect the baby, but you won't protect them when they get older or as kids. So we force them to come into this world. And yet, when they get here, what situation are they in? They're a rape baby, And that's not to say they won't live a good life. I'm not saying that, but I don't get it, personally. And a lot of people would argue, well, you don't, carry our same ideals or our same beliefs, yada, yada, yada. Look, it is what it is when it comes to a woman's right. And the mere fact that we're even having to go back to all this, we lost generations of progress in some states. And our ancestors, the women that fought for suffrage, your grandmothers, your mothers, your great-grandmothers that fought for all this, if you are wanting to put this stuff in place, or if you are putting laws in place, you just slap them in the face. I mean, women's suffrage was just ridiculous because the ideals, it was mostly work related, women in the workplace, but there was also equal rights, voting, so on and so forth. And some of those fights, Suffrage stood for a woman's right to their own body, to their own life, to whatever needs to be happened, to their own health. And there are people that argue that abortions are not a health concern. They shouldn't be on health insurance. They focus on the baby. They never focus on the mother. They never focus on the humanity of the mother, the health of the mother. It's always on the baby. We got to save that life. That may not even be a life yet. Now, forget about the mother. If we lose the mother, that's fine, but we got to save the baby. Looks like I'm milking something. That's awkward. It's dumb. It is so dumb. A woman has their rights. They're human beings. They're individuals. And me as a man, let's just put a politician, if I were a politician or a lawmaker, I wouldn't make a law like this. I wouldn't do it. I mean, you get female input from it. You let the population vote on it. You just don't put it in place and say, this is what it is. Let the people decide. Let the people of the state decide. Don't just enforce this bullshit. Especially if it's an old law, like just recently, as of this video, Arizona. It's ridiculous. And the Attorney General in Arizona has said that she will not punish anybody in this part. Now, Texas, where I live, is a different story. There's been put into law that people can sue if you're involved in an abortion. Abortions are illegal, so on and so forth. Don't get me started on Texas, but my family lives here. My girlfriend lives here, so I'm here. Now, with that said, if in the future, once I retire, I may or may not still be in Texas. I would love to go to Oregon. I want to retire to Oregon, which would be great. That's part of my goal. And that's really for no particular reason. I just really like Oregon, even though I've never even been there. But girlfriend loves it too. So that's part of the plan. But I can only hope that, and you're seeing future generations now that see what's happening, how far back we're going, and we're going back to these just very fucked up ideals and laws that take away human rights. And women's rights are human rights. I've seen people argue the other way. I'm like, how do you rob a woman of their rights when you don't refer to them as human rights? It's exactly what it is, Now, the other question is, there's certain laws as well that say, much like the Arizona law, that abortions are illegal, even in incest or rape, because it's a very out-of-date law, unless the mother's health is in question. Now, where does it fall if a mother threatens suicide if they can't get rid of the baby? That puts the mother's health in jeopardy. So where would that fall? I'm curious about that because, again, this is torture on some mothers. It's torture. That's all it is. It's plain torture if they're not allowed to get an abortion. The other thing is, too, is if they have to travel out of state, and a lot of people would argue, well, they don't have to do it here. They can travel out of state. A lot of mothers, especially nowadays with inflation, they can't afford to go out of state. Don't be ridiculous. They can't afford to travel, some, and they probably can't even travel just for other reasons. I mean, what if they have a health condition, so on and so forth. Some of them can't fly either, so it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's getting to the point now, I know of Americans that go to Mexico for certain health practices, because here in the U.S., it's either too damn expensive or they're unable to find a specialist that can do it if they don't have insurance. So, or they won't do it if they don't have insurance. But there are certain practices in Mexico that, from what I hear and I understand, is the same level of expertise that we have here in the U.S. Just in Mexico, it's far cheaper, and it's easier. But there are older couples that travel down to Mexico to get stuff done, to get stuff looked at, to get work, whatever it may be, health concerns looked at and done. And now we're at this point with abortions that it's just ridiculous. And look, I'm not saying I'm not pro-life. Babies are still babies. especially late term in the womb, but it's still a woman's body. It's still a woman's choice. Now, there's also the question of where do men get involved that's a part of the pregnancy. If they're a rapist, it doesn't matter. Their fucking rights are gone. I don't care what happens there. Incest, that's a different thing. I mean, you have couples that believe they really are in love, even though they're immediate family or first and second cousins. I've never run across that. I'm not saying I've never run across that, but there are people and couples in this world that are set up as such. So that's kind of an awkward situation. And if the pregnancy wasn't wanted, I do believe they should have the right to do what they want to do with that, because malformations can happen with familial breeding. So I think it would be a good decision to be better off if there was an accidental pregnancy to vacate the birth and go from there. Again, personal opinion, but that's always up to the parents, obviously. Now, if you have a couple that has a pregnancy and they've been trying to get pregnant, but there's complications in the matter, it should be something discussed within the couple itself. Now, with that said, obviously the woman, in my opinion, has the final say. But input from the husband and from the father is very important. But here's the other thing: I put myself in those shoes. If I was in a situation to where my partner's health was concerned, and it is fairly early term pregnancy, because of either condition they have, or because they're older in life or whatnot, I'm going to think of my partner above the pregnancy, because my partner is going to be with me the rest of my life. And that's what I'd like to have, instead of just gambling on a child that may or may not be born, and it complicates their health, because I don't want to lose my partner to a gamble of health concerns, So, but again, that's my input as a partner, and even with my current partner, we've talked about this, and I've told her my stance on it. So it's look, going back to it, man, it's just a woman's right. It's not our right as males to put these laws into effect, and that's what our ancestors did. That's the fucked up part. I mean, all these were written back in a time where women didn't have a right to do anything except run a household. That's it. They weren't even allowed to work when some of these laws were put into place. They weren't allowed to join the military or vote, or I'll just never get it. But future generations will see what we're doing here. They will learn from it. They'll just realize how fucked up it was. And that's, I always have hope in that. I always have hope in future generations, especially politically, because they're seeing things, and they have access to the internet and all this information that I mentioned last time. And change will come, whether their ancestors like it or not. Fuck them. I mean, there are people in our ancestry that did this bullshit, And future generations, much to the older generation's dismay, will say, well, this is our time now. That was your time. You made those decisions. We don't want to live like that. So there's that. And, that's a fight that future generations will see and just be like, this shouldn't have been. This shouldn't have happened. And that's the problem with a lot of stuff going on today, is that our kids, or a lot of kids in the future are going to look back at us and just say, what the fuck were you thinking? And concerns to earth, to human rights, to social safety nets, to laws, to policies, to communications, to just all kinds of bullshit that we were making progress in, but now we're like, oh no, we got to go back. We got to go back. And unfortunately, what really makes these laws feel justified to a lot of people is religious beliefs and religious ideals. And that should never be a part of law. It should never be a part of law at all. No kind of civil duties should be based or rooted in any of that, because it's humanity. You can't you can't make a law of the land based on what a supposed deity is handed down, you know. And in the U.S., there's a separation of church and state, or at least there should be. But unfortunately, in some of the undercurrent, that's not the case. Just like with money in politics, there's an undercurrent that it should not be, but it is. So, anyway, that's just my view and my opinion on things. And I wanted to make another video on this because this shit's important, and I want to share my view on it. So, anybody that may be watching, you know, if you feel the same way or maybe you don't, just know that you're not alone. And if there's going to be comments posted, I always vet them on videos like this. So any, you know, really ignorant or really toxic comments will not be shown. But anyway, there it is. And I'm rambling. Stay safe, stay sane. Remember, you're awesome. Never let the world tell you otherwise. I'll see you later. Peace.